One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there will be no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs. Prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Real Screen Team. I'm Andrew Thomas. I'm here with fellow Doctor Who Christopher Johnston.
Hello everyone.
And another incarnation of the Doctor, John Watson.
How you doing?
Yep, and we're finally back to do the Doctor Whoathon that we promised.
Yes, it took some time.
And we'd like to thank the one viewer who gave us our first dislike in the video.
Is it because we didn't acknowledge Joe Martin? Is it?
Yeah, I'm curious. What exactly was it?
Yeah. Respond if you, or if you just want to just be a troll, just tell us that too.
Or maybe they just don't like Doctor Who.
That too.
What monster would not like Doctor Who?
Yeah, we'll never know. But now we're finally going to the William Hartnell era, and we're discussing it by each season. So.
Yes, so you're going to see a lot of changes on our presentation table here.
Yeah, but let's go into the beginnings.
Well, we do need to discuss the premise for those who did not watch the intro. The premise of Doctor Who is Doctor Who follows the adventures of a rogue Time Lord called the Doctor, an extraterrestrial being who appears to be human. The Doctor explores the universe in a time-traveling spaceship called the TARDIS, time and relative dimensions in space. The TARDIS has a vast interior, but appears smaller on the outside, and has the exterior appearance of a blue British police box. With various companions, the Doctor travels throughout time and space, combating foes, saving civilizations, maintaining history, and helping people in need, using only his ingenuity and minimal resources such as the versatile sonic screwdriver. But in this incarnation, no sonic screwdriver.
No, that was never a thing.
It's been acknowledged that it was a time ring once or twice.
Maybe, yeah. They do mention the ring after the regeneration, but of the next one, but well, not much of it.
Though I think at one point he did use the ring to either open or close something.
But let's tell the viewers how it all began.
Well, yeah. Why don't we start with the first Doctor era, going from 1963 to 1966. And why not start it off with the man himself, William Hartnell, as the Doctor. Initially a stubborn and abrasive old man who was distrustful of humans, but he mellowed out into a much friendlier, grandfatherly figure who adores his travels with his companions.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people would say he's a cross between a Victorian gentleman and Yoda, though Hartnell himself considered himself like the Wizard of Oz meets Santa Claus.
Yeah, that could also fit, yeah.
Yep. I liked that description from Hartnell when he said that. I was like, you know what?
Yeah, I mean, your thoughts?
Well, my introduction to him was the Three Doctors before I actually went back and watched his previous stuff. So my actual real thing was Dalek Invasion of Earth, which we'll get to that next season. But I thought he was really good when he was still abrasive, and he tried to throw his companions out space and edge of destruction because he thought they tampered with the ship. He doesn't call it the TARDIS; he calls it the ship. At that time, so that's mainly a thing that always sticks in all the shows. So
I love how this is getting a little far ahead, but I like how in Twice Upon a Time there was a lot of references to stuff like that. That 12 looked at him and said, "Oh, you still call it a ship?" But my first introduction to the First Doctor actually wasn't William Hartnell. It was Twice Upon a Time.
With David
Bradley.
Yeah.
And mind you, we're not there yet, and no spoilers or anything, but he did a fantastic job of keeping the energy of how Hartnell portrayed the First Doctor alive.
Yeah.
But after that, I was so curious to look into the First Doctor, and I wasn't knowing what to expect. I hadn't looked too much into the classic era at that point, but William Hartnell's just fantastic. I love him. I think he's one of the most underrated incarnations of the Doctor, and it's crazy because he had one of the hardest jobs of all of them. Not quite as difficult of a job as his successor, but still, it was a very, very difficult job to hook the British audience the way he did and capture the hearts and minds of everybody who experienced it.
Yeah.
And essentially lay the groundwork that every actor taking over the mantle over time would have to work off of.
Yeah.
And every now and again, with every incarnation, you still see a little bit of Hartnell.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's in some more than others, but I've always considered 12 to almost be an amalgamation. Obviously, he's very much his own thing.
7 can also be that way too, and McCoy.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, or McCoy's Doctor. Yeah.
I've kind of always seen 12 as almost an amalgamation of William Hartnell and Tom Baker,
and some Pertwee in there too.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I would also agree that the Three Doctors was my introduction as far as first watching a story with Hartnell, but the first proper Hartnell story I ever watched was The Aztecs. And I still think that's one of his best stories. Truly one of his best stories.
Yeah, it feels more like the current Doctors, like with David Tennant, like not changing history. You can't change history, Barbara. Not one piece of it, unless it's my own history. But you can't change other people's personal history.
Yes, this is a set period in time.
Yeah.
It cannot be changed.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we have to get into the First Doctor's appearance, because every version of the Doctor has their own unique way of dressing. The First Doctor's appearance is of a Victorian Edwardian gentleman with a black frock coat and a tweed waistcoat over a wing-collared shirt, an ascot tie or ribbon tie, and tartan trousers. Accessories seen from time to time are a monocle, a carved wooden cane, an opera cape, a scarf, a caracal hat, and a large stone ring, and occasionally reading glasses. Hey, he doesn't even need the glasses. They just make him look clever.
Yeah. But his first appearance, he just wears that cloak.
Yeah, and of course the hat and scarf. I always enjoyed this particular look of the First Doctor.
Yeah, we don't get to see that enough after this first season. We don't see it again until like the third season when we mentioned that again in his final story. Yeah.
Yeah, and this. Yep.
And I do have to admit, him wearing the opera cape was also pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, he's dapper.
Yes.
Although he's not afraid to throw hands and beat someone in the head.
Yeah. His method of stopping evil. Yeah, truly, he was not afraid to throw hands with someone. You know, whenever fighting was the last resort, or he was being attacked, oh yeah, he'd knock him out with something.
Although he tried to just kill the caveman because he was getting in his way.
Yeah.
So that was his selfish. He didn't quite find his character yet.
Yeah, those are a couple of instances where, yeah, he kind of broke the code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Never cruel, never cowardly.
I think they all just want to ignore that part. All the incarnations, yeah.
Well, I mean, it is the first story, so
Yeah.
he hadn't found his groove yet.
Yeah.
But, yeah, knock someone out with a blunt object, but don't kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Never kill.
Yeah,
And I also like the fact that he brought up, I don't like to use guns, but if they're ever necessary, I'll use them.
Yeah.
But this first Doctor mainly uses his intelligence to counteract or fix what the enemy has done. Mm-hmm. And, of course, often witty banter with the enemy was common.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
With the Daleks, especially, yeah.
The Sensorites.
Yep.
I mean, the High Priest of sacrifice.
Yep. Yep. He even had his own romance with one of the ladies in the Essex.
Yes, the Doctor's first marriage.
The first known marriage.
Well, yes, true.
Yeah.
How many has he had?
Well, at that point, I would assume at least one other.
Yeah.
You know, whoever.
That's why he had the grandchild.
Yeah, whoever Susan's parents were, and obviously we don't know whether it was through a son or through a daughter of his, but
Yeah.
you know, the parents of Susan probably came from his first, and I would assume longest marriage.
But speaking of that, why don't we get into his initial companions?
Yeah.
Starting with Susan Foreman, played by Carol Ann Ford.
Yeah.
Yes, the granddaughter and original companion of the first Doctor. She's very intelligent. Not much is known about her before the events of the show.
And not much for her to do in the events of the show.
True, because oftentimes she was the damsel in distress.
Or she got injured.
With easily injured ankles. Dear God, this woman's ankles were like glass.
Dalek invasion of Earth.
Oh, my ankle!
When we get
Planet of the Giants. Oh, my ankle!
Yeah.
What other stories? Oh, my ankle.
Pretty sure there were. She also had, like, the flu, the yellow fever from the Reign of Terror.
Yes.
Yep.
Also.
Yeah. Lord have mercy. She caught no breaks.
Although she was also she was much more weird in the unaired pilot. I'm going to mention that. Yes, there's an unaired version of the pilot where she says her and the Doctor are from the 45th century. That's why. That's why I mentioned that. You should have watched the unaired pilot with me, Chris. So you're going to know that, and then because we were already going to discuss it anyway.
From what I understand, there was sort of a back and forth during the conception of the character, where we were either looking at what could have been a version of the Doctor that was human and from the far future, or we're looking at, obviously the alien that we got through an unspecified timeline.
Yeah, she's in the unaired pilot. She wears all silver and stuff once they find her in the ship. She acts more alien-like and weird in the thing. She still does try to tell the Doctor not to go send them out into space, but still she's more weirder in there. And then Sidney Newman told her to go calm it down after the first pilot, which kind of bummed her out because she wanted more to do, other than the Sensorites.
That's really saying something, too, because if you watch An Unearthly Child, which I most certainly recommend for anybody watching this, go hop into the first story if you really want to,
Yep.
see William Hartnell, but more or less, she was weird. I mean, she was strange, but it was such a lovable weird. I think Carol Ann Ford did a fantastic job of bringing this character to life, with the material she was handed.
And the fact of, she also... We're not really sure how old she is.
Yeah.
I mean, she has the appearance of a teenager.
Yeah, she's supposedly 15, but she could be more than 15.
Yeah. But she shows that she's very brave, as well as showing her intelligence. Because, I mean, she was the first one to get, to communicate with the Sensorites and find out that they're mostly friendly. And kind of her link with them greatly helped in the overarching story.
Yeah, like helping, find the cure, getting the cure for them when they had radiation poisoning, and meeting the Thalls from the Daleks.
I love that story.
Yeah, that they made a movie out of it.
And the fact that, do we talk about her accent, or should we wait?
I think we can wait till the second season.
Okay. But, hey, I really enjoy Susan, despite the fact it did kind of feel sometimes she was like the third wheel. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I'm sorry, the fourth wheel.
Yep.
But she was definitely fundamental in helping, create the idea of what a companion would be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And speaking of that, why don't we go into her teachers, starting with Ian Chesterton, played by William Russell.
He was the action hero of the group.
Oh, yeah. Science teacher and professional fighter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he
could throw his hands.
Yeah, especially with stuff that William Hartnell couldn't do.
And I think quite a bit of that came from William Russell's earlier work in his career, playing Sir Lancelot and other things like that. Yeah. He was definitely ready to be that swashbuckling hero, of the team.
And he often butt heads with the doctor, who always called him by the wrong name, his wrong last name. Hey, Chesterfield. Come here, Chesterfield.
I like how the doctor had to gradually gain respect for Ian throughout their journeys. Now, he did, eventually.
Although he also threatened to throw him out when he tried to strangle him at Edge of Destruction.
Yes.
I mean, it was a truly love-hate relationship.
But I like the dynamic that it started to take on as time went by.
Yeah,
I really
because in many ways, Ian was kind of like the moral compass of the whole group.
Yeah.
And he was also somewhat the doctor's confidant when he told him about what his plans were. For the most part, once Barbara and Susan were doing other stuff, messing history or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I think Ian was probably the most level-headed of all of them.
Yeah.
But it's shown that he cares deeply about Barbara and Susan and the doctor himself. Mm-hmm. Ian's very intelligent, but dear God, he often has to use his brute strength to fight enemies. Always throwing hands.
Yeah.
I mean...
For a science teacher, he doesn't do much of the science work.
Even though every now and again he discusses it, but usually it's, oh no, I have to fight the Voord. Oh no, I have to fight an Aztec warrior. Oh no, I have to fight people in the French Revolution. This man never catches a break. He's always fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also alluded to the fact that he and Barbara got married.
Yep.
During the course of their adventures with the First Doctor.
Yeah, but we're not done with them this season. We still have with them in most of next season also, so we'll discuss more about that.
True. And speaking of her, Barbara Wright, played by Jacqueline Hill.
Yeah.
She's also she's a history teacher from the same school that Ian teaches, Coal Hill School. She's occasionally a fighter and also occasionally a damsel in distress. I think she's of all the characters, I believe Barbara is the one that gets the most growth and development.
Yeah, she is.
Between her and the Doctor, yeah.
Yeah, she is.
I mean, as far as companions.
Yeah, they have two of them this season, the Edge of Destruction and the Aztecs. The Aztecs especially, since she's the one who wants to change history. So no evil happens.
Well, yeah, she's not necessarily too keen on the whole, people have to die because of, different beliefs and religion. Yeah.
And as the Doctor says, that's not how it works.
No, because course of events in history. This has to happen. You can't get past it. This is an important thing about this time period.
Yeah.
Though Barbara often uses her wits to evade and outsmart enemies. I definitely have to give her credit at least on a couple wins.
Yeah.
Though we talk about those a bit later. And of course, she fell in love with and married Ian, though off screen.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen that,
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
all the chemistry they had, no payoff.
Yeah. Yeah, we can discuss more about that in the next season, since they're still there for.
Yeah.
Like I said, most of the season. It's only Susan that leaves early. The
True.
following season, yeah.
I think she was trying to find her own way.
Yeah.
Well, I think this version of the Doctor, when it came to, a TARDIS team, I think this is one of the very few times where more than two companions actually worked.
Yeah.
As you see later on in later incarnations of the Doctor, it always kind of felt a bit crowded.
Yeah, and then they had to make sure that one character disappeared midway through a story, or one character dies in a story.
Yeah, but for some reason this particular team, it worked.
Yeah, this is my favorite. Every time I think of the William Hartnell era, this is the team I think of. Pretty much, yeah.
But,
it doesn't get more iconic than this team.
Yeah.
But with it being season 1, we see a vast, very different adventures that go along the way. We see them go back into prehistoric time and try to teach cavemen how to make fire. They run into their first actual extraterrestrial aliens and the Daleks, while they're in the midst of their ongoing centuries-long war and feud with their more humanoid adversaries. There's a weird thing that goes along with a crash landing with the TARDIS where people get amnesia and other weird stuff.
Supposedly possessed, mainly Susan and Ian.
We see them go along in the adventures of Marco Polo.
AKA the story that's not found. Missing.
We'll get more into that a bit later.
Missing, but considered one of the best.
Yes. Yeah. We see them land on a planet that is going through some rough times. And definitely some warring factions as well. Mm-hmm. We see them go back to the ancient times to meet the Aztecs. We see them meet another civilization of aliens known as the Sensorites, and then we see them crash land in the midst of the Reign of Terror.
The Doctor's favorite era of history.
Which is also one of mine as well.
Mine as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I took a whole college course on...
It is fascinating.
Although in the first episode he's mainly knocked out.
True.
Through it all.
So... of this first season, which I gave, a nice little explanation on, Yeah, what are some of your favorites?
My favorite would be.
Well, you get 3, man.
I
You
know.
get 3.
I know. I'm trying. I say that Edge of Destruction, the Aztecs, and the Reign of Terror. Mainly historicals, yeah. My favorite Dalek story is the next season, so we're getting into that.
True.
As much as I like the Daleks in here, they're not quite as menacing, I don't think, until the next season, so that's why I picked those. I mainly like the Edge of Destruction because it's a 2-parter and it's weird and creepy, and also the tension of all 4 of them comes to a head, where eventually the first Doctor finally does get some growth and development with them, with Ian and Barbara, and apologize for throwing them out.
And kidnapping them.
Yeah.
Yeah. First season of the Doctor, he does not know how to pilot the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Did it take by at least the 2nd or 3rd season that he properly knew how to pilot it?
I still think he never fully knew how to pilot it until like the new era, pretty much. Yeah.
Still has its ups and downs with the Doctor's ability to actually pilot the TARDIS.
Well, yeah, because I think it's been explained that you need like at least 3 to 4 people to properly pilot it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's able to do this all on his own, you do have to give him some credit.
That's why he runs around like a chicken with his head cut off.
Like I said, the Aztec speed is mainly a Barbara story, and the first Doctor gets engaged. And then the Reign of Terror is mainly it's a good finale. It rounds up everything there, even though Susan's on holiday. We don't see much of her in the last couple episodes.
And plus, it is a nice finale because, let's not forget, first episode of An Unearthly Child, she's reading a book on the French Revolution.
Yeah. So basically full circle.
Which is one of the things I truly love about that season.
Yeah.
And plus, we're essentially seeing like the end of the Reign of Terror happen in real time.
Yeah. So what are your 3 favorite stories?
Oh,
Yeah.
mine? Well, 2 of them I agree with you on, the Aztecs and the Reign of Terror. But my 3rd favorite is actually the Sensorites. This was actually the first proper story that involved them actually commingling, getting to know, and even butting heads with another alien race that wasn't just right off the back, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna exterminate you. You know, it's, yeah, we're not too sure about you guys, but let's learn from one another. Maybe we can help each other out until there's at least one guy that's a part of the team that doesn't trust them at all, and shenanigans ensue.
Mm-hmm.
I would say my 3 favorites from season 1's An Unearthly Child. It's very iconic. There's nothing like that opening sequence. And then Ian and the confrontation with the Doctor in the junkyard.
And then Barbara walking into the TARDIS.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's bigger on the inside.
Yes. As simple of a story as it may be, I think that just the effect that it had on everybody who saw it back in 1963, it just speaks for itself. I mean, it started everything, and I thought that it is an incredible story. Like I said, obviously it may be a bit simple, but it just set the tone for what we would expect for the next 60 years. I mean, it was just fantastic. I would also then say the Daleks. I love the Daleks. I feel like this is an underrated Dalek story. It had an entirely different tone than not only all the stories prior to it, but just as a Dalek story in general. I mean, it started everything. I mean, we see like a creepier, more solemn version of the Daleks, a little more reserved. They're not going around saying exterminate this, exterminate that. They're in the middle of a war. a genocide that they have been, managing for at least 1,000 years at this point. And, seeing Skaro in that state and, seeing essentially the end of that civil war, if you think about it, because, eventually, the Daleks completely wipe out the Thals, and that's that. But I loved the tone. There was something about that story and the introduction of the Daleks that just gets me. And then I would say the Reign of Terror. I'm a huge, huge fan of the French Revolution. Studied it. I didn't take a college course on it, but I studied it in depth in school and in my own time. And I lean towards some of the historicals. I think they're really well done. And they're a very underrated aspect of classic Who, if you think about it. There's a lot of those mega Whovians out there that swear that they don't like the pure historicals, and I'm just like, why? Why? They are so cool.
That was the fundamental idea of what Doctor Who was supposed to be.
Yeah, it was.
Was to travel throughout history and see all these different, periods of time.
Yeah. Now we just get pseudo-historicals now.
Yeah.
With the current incarnations, yeah.
I do miss the aspect of the historicals.
Yeah.
That is something I would actually like to see New Who, bring back.
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved to have seen Marco Polo in its entirety.
Oh, yes.
As far as historicals go.
Yeah, now we need to get into one of the more controversial things about some of early Who. Unfortunately, when it comes to the first Doctor and also the second Doctor, it's difficult to necessarily watch all of their stories because, unfortunately, back during the time that Doctor Who started and they were working on Doctor Who, the BBC didn't necessarily have the foresight of realizing that keeping things could actually lead to, other forms of media. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, some stories were actually junked, like physically junked. They were either recorded over for other shows or other stories of Doctor Who, or some of them were just straight up destroyed, like set on fire just to make room for the archives of the BBC. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, some stories are either incomplete or they're completely missing. Mm-hmm. Fortunately for Doctor Who, there's only one missing story, but it is one of the most significant stories, and that is Marco Polo. All the episodes are missing. But weirdly enough, there were people that were recording the audio for every episode of Doctor Who. So there are ways to still kind of take in the story, but it's not the same without really seeing it. Some stories even actually have stills that were taken as they were filming. So the BBC has done such things as kind of reconstructions where they would match up that still along with the audio and kind of give you an episode. It kind of works, but it also kind of doesn't. Yeah, Marco Polo is definitely like one of the white whales of Doctor Who as far as people want to find it, because various stories in Doctor Who that we initially thought were lost were found. Mm-hmm. Either by private collectors, as in media companies throughout the world. It's been an endeavor, to find a lot of these missing stories.
Yeah, and Ian Levine luckily got the Dalek story before he got burnt.
Yeah.
That would have been in the junk yet. If he was just a day late, it would have been gone.
Do you imagine how tragic that would be, considering just how important the Daleks went on to be in the whole mythos of Doctor Who, period. Not just in a story-by-story basis. I mean, we're talking the canon itself. They're intrinsic to it.
I mean,
oh, man.
They're one of the main reasons why Doctor Who became so popular. Not, along with William Hartnell as the Doctor. It's essentially the Doctor and the Daleks are what made this show into a phenomenon.
Yeah.
The Doctor brought the audience, but the Daleks sold merch.
Yes.
Yeah. And the Daleks weren't meant to be. They weren't meant to have bug-eyed monsters until they just went with Terry Nation script, and they're like, okay, let's do this. Even though Sidney Newman was absolutely against it. And then after they were such a big success, he's like, well, I guess I was wrong.
I find it so funny how many times the BBC could have shot itself in the foot in the early days of Doctor Who, and somehow they managed to nail it. But I feel like the cards were stacked against it the entire time.
Yeah, it really was. But the fact that they were able to succeed is fantastic.
Yeah, this was supposed to be the only year of Doctor Who. It was only supposed to last for a year.
Wow.
It's a credit to William Hartnell.
Yeah.
Yes.
In just how much he brought audiences back to the screen.
Yeah, and even though a year was also unheard of for that time on BBC.
Oh, yes. The weird things about the BBC when it comes to how they construct their shows. Like where some series they get 12 episodes. Others, they get like 3 or 4. And the fact that they call seasons series. It's weird. It's weird. But, fortunately, the show continues on with its second season.
Yeah. Before we go, make sure to find us on Facebook, The Real Screen Team. Where else, Chris?
You can also find us on Instagram, Reddit, and TikTok.
Make sure to find us on YouTube and make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And now we're to the second season.
Yeah.
So want to roll us out?
Sure. Well, thank you all for watching. Definitely come back and watch us again. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It really helps. Well, cut, print, that's a wrap.